Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel Lady Couture and welcome back to my sewing room for another sewing vlog. In this video I am going to be carrying on with my decades project where I have basically decided to challenge myself to sew my way through the decades from 1800 through to the 1910s. In my last video you will have seen that I was making some Regency petticoats, one of which is displayed here on the mannequin, and the reason I have this on the mannequin with me today is because I am now moving on to making the gown, which in particular I want to work with this specific petticoat. This petticoat is made from silk. You know, it's a shame to hide a lovely silk petticoat underneath the gown. And of course, although petticoats have that hidden function of providing that additional lining layer, a bit of support underneath the skirts and things like that, I've made it from silk and I kind of think it's a shame to, completely hide it under the gown. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to make a little bit of a feature of showing a little bit of the colour of the petticoat through some design details that I want to incorporate on the dress. So in my previous video, I also introduced you to 3 new Regency fabrics that I am hoping to use. So yes, the plan is to make 3 new gowns as samples. 2 of them are white muslins and are fairly sheer, hence why I needed to make some petticoats to go underneath them first before I can make the gowns. And then the 3rd fabric is this one, which on this occasion, it does come in white, but on this occasion is a black cotton muslin, and although it might be hard to see, it does have a kind of sheer stripe detail to it. It's subtle, it's not in your face see-through, but yeah, it definitely has a sheer element to it, and I thought it's ideal for having a slightly coloured, light coloured petticoat underneath. And I finally settled on this lovely bluey grey silk fabric that I've had in my stash for quite some time, so it's finally being used, and as I say, because it's silk, I just feel it's a shame to completely hide it underneath the dress. If I'm going to go to the effort of making a coloured silk petticoat, then we want to see a little bit of it. So yes, so my plan is to use this fabric over the top. Now it's probably not going to show very much on camera, as I say, it is subtle, but you can in places just see the blue of the silk coming through. But to enhance that even more, I've taken inspiration from 2 real gowns that I have seen recently. Now they're not extant Regency gowns, not original Regency gowns, but they have been used on screen in Regency movies. The first of which is the Emma gown from the 2020 Emma, which I had the very great fortune to see and go to an actual study day for, so I was able to get up really close with the costume and look at all the internal details. And how it's made, and that is actually what formed the inspiration for this petticoat, especially the hem, because I put a quilted hem on the petticoat. So again, do go check out my previous videos if you want to see the making of that. The gown itself features really lovely sleeve detail that's built up of layers, and I really like the idea of creating a kind of a split drape sleeve, but then still being able to see the sleeve of the petticoat underneath, so you get the little bit of blue, the bluey grey peeking out from underneath. Then initially I was like, well, we'll just make a version of the Emma gown with the cross front bodice and the infilled neckline, and that's it, Bob's your uncle, we're done. But then I was just like, well, it still just seems a shame to just, the only bit of blue that you're really going to see is going to be the sleeves. So I was then thinking back to another exhibition that I went to last autumn, a few months ago, and that was to see some screen use costumes that were on display at the Buxton Heritage Trust in their beautiful assembly rooms. Again, I have a full video of that trip out, which you can go and check out if you'd want as well. But this is the gown. Now, it's not a named character costume, it's a background character. I guess there's a little bit of ambiguity in obviously the historical provenance of a gown like this, but movie costumes in general are probably going to be a little bit ambiguous in that regard anyway. But it was this gown that has this beautiful draped front on it, and although on that particular gown, the kind of the underlayer that you can see does form part of the dress, I was kind of like, well, why can't it just be the petticoat? Let's work with this and make a feature of showing a little bit more of the petticoat kind of along the bust line, and then utilising this kind of cowled drape effect. Looking at fashion plates and things from the era, you can definitely see, you know, that there is an element of playing around with drapes and pleating on the bodice, which kind of creates that classic statue kind of effect, you know, that Grecian Roman statue which was essentially popularised in the Napoleonic courts. And then another thing I was thinking about was the functionality of the dress. So there's two ways really that, well, three ways perhaps, that the Regency gowns can fasten. They can simply button down the centre back, which my previous gowns have done. However, that can be problematic for dressing yourself. You definitely need somebody else to help you do those buttons up, because they're just in the wrong place for you to be able to reach them on your own. The other method is that they could just have a drawstring tie, which you can see on the petticoat layers here. But if I'm working with this draped front style, that's not really going to work. Okay, it's fine for the petticoat layer, but the gown layer, which is going on top, needs a different way of fastening. So the other method, which is prevalent through the Regency era, is the drop front bodice, or the bib-front bodice, which fastens by the front panel of the bodice and the front section of the dress. Fastens here, and then the skirt is slit here, and then when it's undone, the whole dress, once the dress falls down, and then normally the bodice is kept taut through pinning or ties in the centre front, but quite low down. And I thought that is going to be perfect shape-wise for this style of gown that I'm trying to create. And although the gown that I saw on display doesn't fasten in this way, it's just a back fastening gown, as I say, because this petticoat detail is incorporated into the actual structure of the gown itself. I mean, I'm not 100% sure if I can get it to work, but I think I can. I think it will lend itself perfectly to a bib front style. So that is what I'm going to attempt to do with this gown, is make it a bib front, ruched draped, cowl neck opening gown. I don't know if this is going to work. In my head it does. Whether it works in practicality, I don't know. But that's what my plan is. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is take out my Regency gown pattern. Luckily, because I already have a gown that fits me, I don't need to completely draw from scratch. I can utilise the panels that I already have and just rework them a little bit to redraw the style lines and the shaping. So for the base of the bodice, then I'm going to figure out the cowl draping section separately, and then from there we'll work out the skirt panels. So if you're excited to see whether this works or not, do keep watching, do follow along. If you are enjoying this video, please do give it a thumbs up by clicking the little thumbs up icon down below, and if you want to leave me a comment, that really helps my channel out. You can also subscribe to my channel here on YouTube, which means you will be notified when my next videos go out. But if you want to go a little bit further, you can also subscribe to me via my website and join my email list. You will find I have 3 tiers, the lowest of which is the blue tier, which is free, and then there's 2 other tiers at £2 a month and £10 a month respectively. They all come with different perks and discounts for my online store, where you can order a custom-made historical costume from me, but that will also get you a thank you in the credits at the end of my videos. Anyway, that's a shameless plug aside. Now let's get on with making this dress. So the first thing I'm going to do is just trace off the pattern pieces onto some new pattern paper, and then I can draw in the new style lines. So I have the new pattern pieces drawn out for the bodice, which, as you would have seen, I traced off my old pattern and then I've readjusted the shape to suit the style lines that I want to use for this particular gown. The biggest change really is this front panel, which if it looks a bit of a weird shape, that's because it is. So this is the shoulder, this is the side seam, here is the centre front, and you can see there is some extra on there because essentially the centre front is going to overlap. So I've left myself enough wiggle room on there that I can adjust that if I need to. I can make that a little bit shorter. But you'll probably also notice this big deep curve, which if we compare to the original pattern, so this is the standard neckline on my Lizzie Regency gown. So this new gown, this layer is going to have this very low deep scoop almost coming underneath the bust line, but this is going to get filled in. One, you're going to have the petticoat is going to be sitting up here, and then I've got this cowl drape front to add on as well. With the centre back panel, I haven't changed any of the shape. All I've done is taken the button stand off. My original Regency gown has a back button fastening. At first I was going to just have this cut on the fold as in a single panel, and then I kind of realised that I'm working with stripes and I can't not play around with stripes. So I've decided, last minute decision, but I've decided that I'm going to put a back seam on this panel, but it means I can cut the stripes on the cross, or on the bias I should say, and create a chevron effect into this seam down the centre back. That's my plan, because stripes. Then the side pattern piece hasn't actually changed shape, but I thought, you know, it's such a simple piece that I just thought I'd quickly just trace it off, and then it just means that this pattern, or these pieces, can all be kept together in one pocket in my folder, and I haven't got to go hunting for the side seam pattern piece every time I want to use this pattern. If I just briefly pop the pattern roughly in place somewhere. Just hold it in place. Can you see what I mean about how that front panel is going to dip down, showing off the petticoat layer underneath? here's a first look at the bodice for the gown on the mannequin over the petticoat. And yes, I am obsessed with pattern matched chevron stripes. Can't beat it. But anyway, I digress. That's not the main focus of this gown. So yes, so we're playing around with the front fastening. Now at the moment, this edge isn't stitched. I need to hand stitch this in to give the neatest finish. Obviously help stop it stretching. So it's just pressed in place at the moment, and then you can see how it fastens up underneath there. What I'm probably going to need to do is just dart a little bit under here. I will try it on myself just to make sure, but yeah, if I get a little bit of dart in there, just take out some of that fullness on each side. I'm hoping it's not going to be sitting too low, but I mean, by the time I get the actual hem waistline edge turned up under, I don't think it will be too bad, something like that. And then I just need to obviously play around with where the overlap is, and make sure that there is enough overlap that at the moment I'm just going to pin it closed, which is a perfectly traditional Regency technique to close garments like this. But yeah, so initially I will start by pinning it, and then I will probably swap to like hooks and eyes or something, just to make sure it's nice and secure and that I've not got pins sticking out of me in weird places. So far, so good. Okay, so I've been playing around with the sleeve this afternoon, and in the end I decided to just do the Emma sleeve, and actually I'm really pleased with how it's working. So at the moment it's still just in a mock-up. The previous mock-up just wasn't working quite how I wanted it to. I couldn't quite get the pleats to sit in a way that they just folded nicely and draped around underneath the arm. So I kind of just went back to the drawing board. And actually it was a lot more simpler than I thought it was going to be. It looks really complicated with kind of the gathered up kind of drawstring sections at the top and underneath, but it actually works really well, and obviously that in turn reduces the bulk that is going into the armhole, the arm side. So I think once this is in the black, this is going to look really, really nice. I've cut it so that although this looks like a curve edge on here, it's actually cut on the straight, which means I can actually follow the straight lines of the stripes. I would have liked to have got the sleeves in today in the actual fabric and got further on with the bodice, but unfortunately it's just one of those things when you're playing around with patterns and drafting, the time can sometimes just go. So I'm going to leave the video here for today, and I will see you in my next session, but for you that will be just a few seconds. So I'm just starting to play around with how I want the front to drape, and I'm just playing with whether to add more volume into the drapery by pleating up the sides, or whether to just have it straight at the sides and that the drape is just in the excess that's at the front of the bodice, which will fall down like so. So yeah, just playing around because I can't quite decide really how I want it to sit. pin this from the mannequin and yeah, see what kind of shape we've got, and then try and replicate it in the black muslin. Okay, so since I last filmed, as you can see, I've taken it off the mannequin. I've done a fit test over both the petticoat and my stays, so I can just make sure everything is sitting in the right place. I was a little bit worried that the waistline was looking like it was sitting a bit low, but once I've actually got it on, it's fine, so that's all good. I mean, it shouldn't have been any different than obviously what the waistline on all of my Regency gowns are. But yeah, it just looked a little bit low on the mannequin, so I thought I'd just try it on myself and see how it looks, so that's all fine. The only thing I have had to change is to add in, basically the front overlap was overlapping far too much. By the time I got my stays on, obviously it's kind of lifting my bust up, so the fit of the bodice is a lot snugger and crosses over a lot more underneath my bust line. So then the other thing I found was that just around the edge of the neckline here, it was just gapping a little bit. Now whether it's just the nature of this fabric and it kind of has just warped and stretched it a little bit as I've worked it, because obviously this line is kind of on a curve, it's not on a straight line. So I thought the best thing to do would be to just run a drawstring ribbon through the neckline channel, which was already there from where I'd turned it over and stitched it. So it wasn't really a problem to just run a drawstring through there. The only thing I have had to do is just chop off a little bit at the front and just return it back under so that it's no longer overlapping. It just meets at the front now. And then the drawstring, because it doesn't need a lot taking out of it, so the drawstring just eases it in a smidge more tightly, so I'm hoping that will have solved that issue. Also, it's not going to stay as a gold ribbon because surprisingly the gold ribbon, or unsurprisingly, the gold ribbon is showing through the fabric quite a lot. So I'm going to swap this out for black, but I don't have any 3mm black ribbon at the moment, so I had to order some. Yeah, so I had to also order some 3mm blue ribbon to finish this off, so this doesn't have gold ribbon running through it as well. Because really the only thing I use this for is hanging loops on my skirts and things like that when I'm making stuff for customers. So I don't really use 3mm ribbon very often, and I have it in gold because gold is my brand colours, my Bib-Front couture colours, so that's why I have rather a lot of gold 3mm ribbon, which I've been using, and obviously once I've finished using this, it can get back in my stash and be used for ribbon hanging loops. So yeah, so that's what I've done with the bodice so far, and then I think you would have just seen I've just started putting the skirt panels together, so they are now cut out and together, French seamed those up, and then I have the openings at the top, which is on both sides, to enable the Bib-Front to work and create enough room for me to get the dress on and off. So from there, I have now started to, or I have stitched the back panel of the skirt to the back panel of the bodice. So you should see that's the centre back there with the chevron detail. Chevron detail. Sorry, it gets me excited. I like playing with stripes. Yes, so I have now attached the skirt onto the bodice. As you can see, it's quite tightly gathered at the very centre back, and then I'm easing the gathering out, not quite so tightly around towards the side seam. Then what I'm going to do to finish off this raw edge is basically encase it in a strip of bias binding folded over, and that will run right along to the edge of the front of the bodice. So that will act in numerous ways. It will cover over the raw edge and hide all this the rough cut edge of the fabric, and keep that nice and neat. It will add a little bit of stability to the fabric as well, especially here, because it's just a single layer. This fabric obviously is quite sheer, quite lightweight. So yeah, so add a little bit of stability to that line under the bust as well. And then also, if I really needed to, I could add in another drawstring ribbon underneath the bust line if I feel it needs it. I'm hoping it won't, because at this point I feel like everything is drawstring. This is drawstring. I've got drawstring on the chemise, drawstring, well, not drawstring, but there's ribbon ties on the stays, and now there's more ribbon ties on the gown. And then my next task really is to pop this back on the mannequin, because I need to attach the front skirt panel to the bib front of the bodice here. But to do that, I'm going to put it back on the mannequin and just pin it all in place, just so I can make sure that the front panel of the skirt is sitting and overlapping the back panel nicely, because we don't want any gapping. I'll show you what I mean. I'll do it I'll talk as we do it. So I didn't take any video of the testing the bodice fit out. I was kind of just trying to do it quickly, so I can crack on with obviously getting this completed. But it does look nice, I have to say. I am very pleased with how it's looking, and yeah, the effect of having the petticoat showing underneath is just looking really nice and lovely. I'm really pleased with that. So yes, so we shall just tie up there. You see how that just pulls that in nice and snug around this line here, and the ribbon only goes around to the back shoulder seams. Now I don't want it running right the way around, and the back neckline is sitting fine. It was literally just this bit here that was just gapping a little bit, which is something will probably be able to work out in the pattern eventually, but at this point this little bit drawstring is fine, and it just makes sure it is just nice and snug, and it's not gonna like try and fall off the shoulders. And that I will say, when this is on the mannequin, the little gathered loops on the shoulders look really square and weird, but when I was wearing it, they look fine. It's not creating this effect. Whether it's just the fact of have it where my shoulders sit underneath is just lifting it and sitting it in the right place. But yeah, ignore that. Yeah, so as you can see, that's the bodice there, and obviously at the moment I am just anchoring it with a pin. And then obviously you can see the back panel of the skirt is down here on each side. So the panel runs around to halfway between the side seam, the underarm seam, and the dart in the front here. Because basically I just want to make sure that there is enough overlap of these panels, so that you don't get any or too much unsightly gapping, because that's one of the things with these drop front gowns, is there's nothing fastening them at this point on the lower body. It's literally just the overlap of the fabric, which is why you need your petticoat and your layers underneath to obviously preserve a little bit of modesty. Right, so that is that, and then the bib front. Now at the moment it is just pinned in the very centre front. So yeah, basically I just need to pin this to the front of the bib, and obviously not catch it into the underlayer of the front bodice. I do want to just lightly, very lightly, just put a little bit of gathering right around the front, just to make sure that this fabric isn't kind of pulling taut over the tummy or anything like that. And then again, this raw edge on the inside will be finished off with a bias binding, which I'm also probably going to turn into ties, which will extend obviously around the back and tie at the back. So it just keeps this bib section secure and snug and tight to your underbust, because that is kind of what holds the gown together. Okay, so here is your last look at the gown before I do the big full reveal of the final outfit a little bit later on. She's not quite 100% finished yet. I still need to do the button fastenings on the top of the bib front, and I just need to do a little bit of hand stitching. I'm also just going to put some hand stitched loops on the bodice just to run the ties for the bib front through, just to keep that sitting nice and secure, and so it doesn't kind of shift about when I'm wearing the gown. And I also need to finish off the hem, which I have cut to length. I just need to turn it up and hand stitch it. But basically these are all projects that I'm going to save to just sit and do in front of the TV, I think, at the weekend. But other than that, I think she has come together really well. Obviously, with it being the first time making a completely new style of gown, it's taken me a little bit longer to kind of work out things, so things like the drape on the bodice, things like that, just little things that just take a little bit longer to figure out, but I'm sure that once I have a couple of these made under my belt, the time that it takes me to make them will probably drop down a little bit. I then just need to do the figuring out for costing, and then once I have done that and hopefully got some nice photographs, then my intention is to offer these in my Blue Lady Couture web store. And of course this particular fabric itself does come in different colours, so I'm hoping if I can continue to be able to source them from my supplier, then yeah, there will be some more colour options available. I think because this one is black, the colour petticoat layer isn't showing through quite as strongly as I thought it perhaps might. There are certainly places where you can see it, and as you move, you know, it is there, and it obviously gives that kind of overall blue tone to the outfit, I suppose. But I am glad that I have gone to the trouble of designing this gown to work with and make a feature of the silk petticoat underneath. Yeah, I'm really pleased with how that's turned out, and I think it looks really striking and really lovely when you're wearing it. Anyway, do stick around for the full reveal of this gown. Coming up, there will also be some more Regency sewing projects where I make the sample gowns out of the other two muslin fabrics that I have bought, so I can't wait to get started on those. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up by clicking the little thumbs up icon down below. And if you'd like to leave a comment, that really helps my channel out. You can of course also subscribe here on YouTube, and that will mean you get notified next time my next video goes out. If you want to support my channel even further, you can of course subscribe direct to my website to receive my email newsletter, and that will also give you discounts on my classic collection should you wish to purchase anything from me in my web stores. But I also have 3 tiers of membership available, one of which is completely free, and then the other 2 tiers are £2 and £10 per month respectively, and as well as the discounts and the newsletter and things like that, you will also get a thank you in the end of my YouTube videos. I do hope you've enjoyed following me along in my little whimsical corner of the internet, and I will hopefully see you in my next video as well. Take care, bye!